like to call the May 30th Planning and Zoning Commission special meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, good evening, everyone. Let's start with roll call.
Hampi,
Here.
Schlauer,
Here.
Stephenson,
Here.
Carey,
Here.
Okay. Ceremonies, announcements, appointments, and presentations. Mr. Manley?
Yeah, for those who don't know, today is National Creativity Day, so it's time to get out those crowns and have some fun. So that's today, May 30th.
Cool. All right, do we have any amendments to the agenda tonight?
There's none.
And for commission members, any conflict, ex parte contacts, site visits, anything to declare?
No.
All right, seeing no, move on to the consent calendar, please.
Yeah, action item A is the meeting minutes from May 17th, 2023. Action item B is the zoning recommendation for the Thompson-Satchel annexation and North Crown zone change. File numbers AN and X 2214 and zone change file number ZC 227. And action item C is the reasoned decision for the Quellview Townhomes subdivision file number SUBD 2215.
Okay, hopefully everybody had a chance to review that. If so, do we have a motion?
I move to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Have a first?
I second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Carey,
Yes.
Stephenson,
Yes.
Schlauer,
Yes.
Hampi,
Yes.
Next item is citizen issues. This section of the agenda is reserved for citizens wishing to address the commission on an issue that is not on the agenda. Persons wishing to speak will have 5 minutes. Comments related to pending public hearings, including any decisions appealed to city council, are out of order at this time and should be held for that public hearing. Repeating comments regarding similar topics are also out of order. Do we have anybody in the audience that would like to speak any citizen issues tonight? All right, seeing none, moving on to item number 3, which is unfinished and old business.
There is none.
All right, so we'll move on to the meat of the meetings tonight, which is going to be our public hearings. There are 3 of them tonight. If you are wishing to speak, make sure you fill out, like most of you have already done, form in the back. Please bring that up to Amber up here. With that being said, we'll open the first hearing, which is the Post Falls School District Special Use Permit. And John Manley will be presenting.
Good evening, Commissioners. John Manley, Planning Manager here with the City of Post Falls, introducing the staff report regarding the Post Falls School District Special Use Permit, file number SUP 231. Owner of the land is the Post Falls School District, and the school superintendent is here this evening to present their matters. And the applicant for them was Landon DeFelice with Architects West. The requested action is a special use permit to allow an expansion of their school services, in particular their food distribution facility. That Dina Necarato will go into explanations of why that's needed at this time. It is within the single-family R1 zoning district, and it would be permitted through 1816-10 through that special use permit process. Location of the proposal is east of Greens Ferry Road, northeast corner of Greens Ferry Road and Horsehaven Avenue, at that section highlighted there as being the location needed. Surrounding zoning in the area, you can see the area where the yellow that's highlighted in black, that's that R1. So predominantly to the west of Greens Ferry Road and north of Horsehaven, or sorry, you can't read that.
Pole line.
Pole line, yeah, my eyes are starting to go. So, yeah, north of pole line is the R1. You do see a little bit of pink, that's that limited commercial. And then there's Horsehaven. You do see a little bit of pink, that's that limited commercial. And then there's Horsehaven running along the south. You see it predominantly south of Horsehaven, you see that other single family. To note, the green, their use would be permitted outright in the green. It's just because their development is going a little bit further north than anticipated, that's what's triggering the special use permit request as required per code. Here's their site plan that was in the packet. You can see Exhibit A3, that's that reference number in their packet. The line that you see here, that's that northern boundary of that public reserve zone. And so that rectangular piece would be right here where I'm kind of using that cursor. That would be that R1 area that's causing that request for that building that kind of encroaches in this plan to go further north than anticipated. The site, the water is provided by Ross Point Water District. Wastewater is provided by the City of Post Falls. As I stated, it's to expand their food service operations. Looking at review criteria A, here's that land use table, and here's where you see the R1, that's that zoning district. So here's the schools, and anything that's in those is currently requires a special use permit, and that's why we're here to allow potentially a special use permit for their services desired. So that's review criteria A, where it's looking at the implementation of the special use will or will not conform to the purpose of the applicable zoning district, and it is allowed through the special use permit process. This is equally applicable to criteria B, where it states whether the proposed use constitutes an allowable special use as established by this chapter for the zoning district involved and complies with all other applicable laws, ordinances, regulations of the city and state. So through development, they'd meet our City of Post Falls design standards as potentially issued through a special use permit. Looking at criteria C, whether the proposed use will or will not be compatible with the health, safety, and welfare of the public or with land uses in the vicinity. We looked at some of the residential neighborhoods to the west, some of that limited commercial to the north. Staff looked at it and determined that the proposed use would not negatively impact the health, safety, and welfare or the public or land uses within the vicinity. On that note, looking at the transportation aspect of it, it was noted that the special use would not anticipate to produce impacts that would adversely impact the adjoining transportation system. It noted that Horsehaven Avenue is a minor collector and intersects Greens Ferry Road, which is a minor arterial. It was also cited that the current roadway network has capacity and has identified impact fees projects in the immediate vicinity to further the facilitating long-term traffic operations. Water reclamation. The site would be connected to the city's water reclamation facility. For individuals that don't know what that is, that's our sanitary sewer system. Domestic water, that would be provided by Ross Point Water District. Looking at criteria D, looking at whether the proposed use will or will not comply with the goals and policies found in the comprehensive plan. Goal 7, staff determined the proposal would be maybe consistent with that, as it says to plan for established types of quantities of land uses in Post Falls, supporting community needs and city's long-term sustainability. So supporting the schools and the schools' operations may be considered meeting that goal. Policy 9, encourage compatible infill development and redevelopment of vacant and underutilized properties within city limits. This is a portion of a school property that's undeveloped and could be considered underdeveloped. Policy 10, prioritize location of schools and areas and access to arterial and collector streets. I already stated the proximity to an arterial street of the site. Ample sidewalks and pedestrian access. Those developed neighborhoods nearby have developed sidewalks or multi-use trails, and with development of this, they would provide any undeveloped portions of that as well. Looking at the cost-effective access to necessary utilities, this is a site that's already near other utilities and may be consistent with that part of that policy as well. Policy 56, work with the Post Falls School District, coordinate city parks, facilities, and service planning with district facility plans, district programs, recreational facilities, and educational opportunities. Could be considered that allowing the school to utilize properties that they already owned may be considered collaborating on that policy as well. These are the agencies that were notified. Of the comments received, Yellowstone Pipeline had no comment. CUNY County Fire and Rescue basically states that they would coordinate at time of development, and the Highway District had no comment. Here's the nutshell of the 4 review criteria. Any questions for me at this point in time?
So this parcel currently is owned by the school district?
Yeah, I'll go back to the maps. So the green areas, the public reserve areas, that is where the high school is located at.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe Greens Ferry Elementary, Dina,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Prairie View
Prairie.
Prairie View.
Elementary is right there. So they're both owned by the school. It's just, when the zone change came through for the public reserve, the current lens at that time is supposed to be applied to 20 acres or more. So those sites at the green are greater than 20 acres. The yellow site, being the residential, is less than 20, therefore it remained R1. So, but they're both owned by the school. Hindsight, they more than likely we could have maybe gone down the path to zone all of it public reserve, but that's not what we have. That's not what the entitlements we have.
Any other questions?
No.
No.
Thank you. I'd like to invite the applicant up.
Is there any of these slides you'd like to remain open? Okay.
Name and address for the record.
Dina Nacarado, Superintendent, Post Falls School District. I'll use the school district's address, 206 Westmoreland Avenue. Thank you for hearing me this evening. I'm here to kind of explain why we need a food service distribution center. Currently, in our school district, we do not have one, and what we discovered during the pandemic was that many of our service providers would no longer deliver to 11 different school sites. We also discovered that a school district our size, we're the only one of our size in our state that does not have a distribution center at this time. So then we began looking at, is there a way for us to do this cost effectively so we don't have to ask our taxpayers to help pay for this building? I think everyone is aware that school districts received ESSER funding, much like cities and states did. We have set aside some of those federal funds in order to construct this if this group deems it appropriate, so that it would be of no cost to our taxpayers. As John stated, this land is owned by the school district and has been owned by the school district for many years. It is adjacent to Post Falls High School and Prairie View Elementary School. We don't expect there to be a ton of traffic as a result of this food distribution center. We actually expect a semi to come in once a week, and then we will have our small vans deliver out to our 11 district sites. So we don't expect there to be a huge traffic implication for those people who live in subdivisions around Prairie View or the high school. So that's kind of the why. I would stand for any questions, or did I forget anything that maybe you're wondering about?
Would the delivery to the schools be a daily thing, or several, one from each school each day, or how would that work?
You know, we've never
Have an
had
idea?
this before, and so we don't know. What we do expect is that we currently have a district food van that does do some minor deliveries. We would need to purchase an additional van, and then those smaller vehicles would deliver out to schools. But we don't expect to have a fleet of vans moving in and out of that or anything
Yeah.
like that. We couldn't afford that.
Okay, thank you.
So, just a general question. So currently, the food service companies are making the deliveries to the school, and so now they're gonna deliver here, and we're gonna then have to carry it from there to each school.
Correct. And what happened was we actually lost some of our food distributors said we will no longer service the Post Falls School District. So as a result of that, our costs for food have increased because we don't have vendors that are willing to drive to 11 different places. So it's changed the way our food service director has had to go about ordering food and actually getting food to our different schools.
So is the food actually prepared at the schools?
Yes.
Or on, okay.
Yeah.
This is kind of warehouse.
Yeah, it is actually a warehouse. That's
Okay.
exactly what it is.
Okay.
And so there would be our food service director housed there, her assistant, and then there would be warehouse workers, we believe a couple,
Okay.
and then our drivers. And they very well may be the warehouse workers that are also our drivers.
Okay.
And when you say van, it's no different than just a regular minivan or a little bit, larger
Correct.
residential kind of van,
Correct.
commercial van, like, okay. Not a big old box truck going in and out all the time.
I don't believe it will be a big old box truck, but there could be a box truck.
Sure.
It's, again, we've
It's all
never
new
done this
territory.
before, so
Yeah.
we're trying to do this in the most cost-effective manner without disrupting anybody who currently lives in those subdivisions surrounding the high school or Prairie View.
Okay. Any other questions?
Nope.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any public testimony?
Nope.
None, all right. No need for rebuttal then. All right. Close the hearing out. We'll go into our review criteria. All right, we got review criteria A, is for a special use permit. Whether implementation of the special use would or would not conform to the purpose of the applicable zoning district. What does the
As
commission
with a
think?
Yeah, it
special use
conforms.
permit, yeah, it's-
With a special use, it does.
Yeah, with special use, and it would be outright with the public reserve, which is right next to it, which
Right.
is, the only reason it's not that is because the land size is less than 20 acres. Okay, next one, please. Whether the proposed use constitutes an allowable special use as established by this chapter in the zoning district and complies with all other applicable laws, ordinance, and regulations of the city and state. Look at that one.
Does.
Let's see. But why does it?
John showed us the
Yeah,
table.
John
Yeah,
told
the
us it
table,
did.
there we go. Gotta go back and look, yep, the table.
The table.
Well, we touched on it in number one, that it is allowable as a special use.
In R1, yep. All right, next one, please. Whether the proposed use will or will not be compatible with the health, safety, welfare of the public with the land uses in the vicinity of the proposal.
Well, I think it will be compatible. It's going to be minimal traffic or use in and out. Not a whole lot of employees there or anything.
Yeah,
Health and safety, I'm sure it's compatible. The welfare part, it's hard to say without looking at the economics. It's hard for me to believe that adding overhead to any organization like this is gonna create a net gain in operating efficiency, but I guess we just have to trust that it
Yeah.
does.
it's all new, have to figure it out. Instead of going to 11 different locations, going to one and then distributing it, so the whole process could change, but. Next item, please. Whether the proposed use will or will not comply with the goals and policies found in the comprehensive plan. I think the one thing that resonated with me was, supporting community needs. So I think this is a really good location, being that you got an elementary school and a high school there. So that's going to support the local schools. Anything else? Next item?
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't see any
Yeah.
problem with
Yeah.
it there.
Exactly, yeah. Oh, just the 4. Okay. Any other comments?
I think since the school is already there, it was approved under special use. I can't see any reason that this wouldn't be a good fit there.
Yeah, I would agree, and kind of interesting that we're the only one that doesn't have one like this, as much as the school district has grown with the 2 elementary schools in the past couple of years and whatever growth it will bring. Okay. Any other thoughts?
The neighbors would probably rather have this than a playground.
Maybe. All right. If there's nothing else, entertain a motion.
I will move to approve the Post Falls School District Special Use Permit, file number SUP-23-1, finding that it meets the approval criteria in Post Falls Municipal Code as outlined in our deliberations, and I do not believe we had any conditions. There were no conditions contained in the staff report.
I think there's one, isn't there? Am I wrong?
Double check.
And I could have missed it.
There is one condition.
One
Is, there
condition,
is,
yeah,
okay.
on about city access management for
Okay.
the
Yep.
street access, yeah.
So as outlined in our deliberations, subject to condition 1 contained in the staff report, and direct staff to prepare a written reasoned decision.
Okay,
I second.
I have a first and a second. Roll call, please.
Ampe,
Yes.
Schlauer,
Yes.
Stephenson,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
All right, moving right along. Open up the next public hearing, which is Fair Estates Subdivision. Mr. Manley to present.
Got my glasses this time.
Perfect.
Right, Fair Estate Subdivision, file number SUBD 23-1. Owner being VS Development LLC, the applicant Olson Engineering. So they're requesting approval to subdivide approximately 6.04 acres into 20 single-family lots within the single-family residential R1 zoning designation. You see here, this is the highlighted area of the proposed subdivision. It's on the southwest corner of Prairie and Chase Road. The current land use is a large lot, single-family home. Water provider would be East Green Acres Irrigation District, with wastewater being provided by the city of Post Falls. The yellow that you see there is the existing R1 zoning designation for it. You can look to the west, you see other R1 lots, and to the southwest, you see that's R1S. Irony is, if you look at the size of those lots, the R1S, they're very similar in size of the R1 lots to the north. Those R1S lots were approved through a PUD. Their proposed subdivision plan, as you see here, with the original submittal package, they were planning on continuing Coregrass Avenue and Pickerel Street with this denoted Fair Road that came down into Watercress Avenue at that location. And you can see here that where I've highlighted with this red elliptical shape, that was initially proposed to be accessed through an easement. And through the review, our city code requires all lots to front a public or private street. So the applicant amended their plan, and that, as you see here, this is their proposal, is to propose this private street within a tract. that would then bring these lots meeting that Title 17 requirement of fronting a public or private street. All lots were reviewed, that they're all meeting the minimum square footage. And then on their resubmittal, staff reviewed that all the lots met the minimum lot width. So it would, all the proposed lots would meet the minimum size and disposition requirements within zoning as well. An additional note is typically cul-de-sacs are not encouraged in Title 17. In fact, it discourages cul-de-sacs. This proposed layout would bring it more in conformance with Title 17 than having a dead-end cul-de-sac. Now going into the review criteria of a subdivision. First one is, are there definite provisions being made for the water supply system that is adequate in terms of quantity and quality for the subdivision? East Green Acres would be the irrigation district would be the water service provider. In regards to a public sewer system being able to provide and accommodate the subdivision, the City of Post Falls has the capacity to provide service to the proposed subdivision. Third criteria, are the proposed streets consistent with the transportation element of the comprehensive plan? Staff reviewed it and determined that the subdivision and proposed layout are consistent with the city's transportation master plan and design standards. Fourth criteria are looking at, are there areas of proposed subdivision that may involve soil or topographical conditions presenting hazards that have been identified, and that the proposed uses of these areas are compatible with such conditions. Oftentimes you've seen this come up in other subdivisions where there's been borrow pits or fill or items like that, that when we do our notifications, they bring notice of such. We haven't heard that or been validated at this point in time, but we have determined that at this time there are no known soil or topographical conditions identified as hazards. Additional note, this is over the Rathdrum Prairie Aquifer. Criteria 5, the area proposed for the subdivision is zoned for the proposed use, and the use conforms to the other requirements found in this code. I kind of referred to this in the intro, citing the Title 17 it matters, being the amended plan being needed to be consistent with Title 17. Also, I already identified how the lots meet our proposed zoning requirements. So per the amended plan, it would meet our standards. Review criteria 6, more or less, developer has made adequate plans to ensure the community will bear no more than its fair share of costs. This criteria is met with the impact fees that are assessed at the time of building permit, where they use to offset some of the costs with parks, public safety, multimodal pathways, and streets. We also collect impact fees for both fire and EMS now. So the impact fee system with building permits is a method of growth paying for growth with projects. Here's the agencies that were notified. YPL had no comment. Kootenai County Fire and Rescue, they said they reserved their comments for the city review process. The school district, they provided a letter saying they are not over capacity and would remain neutral. Here's the overview of the 6 review criteria. And I'd stand for any questions you have for me on the staff report or what's been presented.
I have a quick question. Is the, there's just the one entrance and exit that will be off of, what did I see? Watercress. That's the only entrance and exit to the subdivision?
You know, I apologize for this view. This would not be the only way method out. You could, individuals would go down Coregrass or Pickerel at some
To
time
Chase?
westerly. Let's see if this has. I will see if the internet works. So if I could pull up the map viewer, we can look at the existing roads in the area. That being said, the fire department, at such time you get 30 or more lots, they do require a second egress access. So that is part of the.
So something will come out onto, maybe out onto Chase?
Oh. Well, this isn't conveniently getting me out to,
It kind of shows it on one of our,
what's that?
Yeah, I have it
I
on.
think
yeah.
slide, go to slide 5, I think it was.
Oh, yes,
No.
thank you.
Well, yeah, that one works too.
Yeah.
No, whoops.
And then the plan is this street is currently being extended to the west. This will come up and then connect, so,
To Cordgrass, right?
yeah.
Okay. And then that, was it Pasture View would be another way out onto Prairie.
Correct.
So those roads are already
At
there.
such time, once Coregrass comes down and elbows out, sometime in the future, we don't know
Sure.
when that connection will be
Yeah,
made.
it's a
But
county
that'll be the
lot right
last
now.
remaining 5-acre lot between that connection.
So those roads are there right now.
So that's in the future, though, when this parcel is developed, it will only
They're
have
there
the
now.
one access?
No, you could come down here to Watercress down, or you could go westerly and get connected over this direction. So it meets
Oh,
the
okay.
fire requirements for having
Okay.
multiple access. So emergency services would be satisfied. If they weren't, they would have commented otherwise
Yeah.
on their comment when we routed it. If there was concerns by emergency services, we would have received that by the fire department.
Okay.
Then just to confirm what something you said, I know we were working on the impact fees for fire and EMS. That is active now?
Yes, we are collecting impact fees for both those.
Cool, good to know. All right. Any other questions?
I'll leave this one up now.
All right, applicant, come up. Name and address, and I think you know the routine.
Jeremy Terzulli, I'm a project coordinator with Olson Engineering. We are located at 1649 Nicholson Center Street here in Post Falls. I personally reside in Hauser. I thought the staff report covered it pretty well. Try to offer a little clarification on some of those issues. As John pointed out, East Green Acres can and will serve the project. With regard to sewer, that'll be Post Falls Municipal Sewer. We're delayed a few months as we waited for the analysis of the Fisher Lift Station, which we got a memo a month or two ago from the city engineer indicating that there was capacity within the Fisher Lift Station to serve this project. And I did want to point out that additional impact fees collected will help fund the upgrades to the Fisher Lift Station, which will probably be in the next couple of years. But that is going to be nearing capacity here pretty soon. So, but at this time, it can serve the development. With regard to the proposed streets and whether or not they're consistent with the transportation plan, yes, these are all designed with the appropriate right-of-way, with the sidewalks and the curbing, the proper widths. They're classified as local streets, which are going to be your residential streets, designed in a way that they're deliberately a little more narrow, greater less spacing on intersections to deliberately sort of slow down traffic on these neighborhood streets. And then with regard to access, we do have pickerel, cordgrass, which then sort of funnels west and south, ultimately to Fisher, which is a minor collector, and on over to Chase, and then we move up in the street classification up to the roundabout at Prairie. So it is designed in accordance with the master transportation plan, and we anticipate it to function properly. We initially did talk about direct access onto Chase. That was kind of shot down due to the improvements to the roundabout at Chase and Prairie that'll be forthcoming. A dedicated lane as you move west, moving south onto Chase, that I believe the city engineer felt that it was too close to that roundabout to allow full access into that proposal off of Chase. So we went back to the drawing board and created connectivity to Watercress. The way this should function is the northern half of this development will funnel west and ultimately south. The southern half of this development should use that connection to Watercress, ultimately getting out onto Fisher and then distributing out into the network. Hopefully that clarifies some of those questions. No soil or topographical issues were identified through our due diligence. Is the proposed subdivision, does it conform with other requirements of the code? Yes, it does, and ultimately our density is actually quite a bit less than what would be allowed by code. And then as far as a developer paying their fair share of costs, I wanted to point out that through the process, there will be a lot of right-of-way dedication and installation of public infrastructure that will then be turned over to the city. The water districts will get looping of water lines. There will be improved access for EMS and fire vehicles. Extensions and frontage improvements along Chase Avenue, including an extension of the bike path in front of the fair property that isn't part of this subdivision. This was boundary line adjusted. The fair property stayed out of this. However, we're working with the city to make sure that there's connectivity to that bike path to the south, so there isn't a 200-foot swath where there's no bike path. So that is occurring. Of course, the collection of impact fees. I wanted to point out that 20 new homes will generate a more robust tax base as opposed to one single family on a 6-acre piece within the city limits. This is an infill development, and infill development, as the comprehensive plan points out, is the most efficient and judicious use of city resources. So we feel it checks every box. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
So the one little street that is access for 13, 14, and 15, those lots, they called it a driveway, I think, but then
We
referred
started
to it
out
as
as a shared driveway. We were gonna do a
Okay.
shared driveway. We had about 6 iterations of that little odd-shaped
Okay.
piece. And I can try to give this to Ethan so he can advance it. Right, so that was probably iteration 2 or 3 right there to pick up those lots. John, as he's always very diligent when he reviews these, calls me up and said, here's a section of code. It's one sentence that states every residential or commercial lot needs to front a public or approved private street.
Okay,
And I said, well, if we make those flag lots, they'll have 15 feet of frontage on Fair Road. And he said that would absolutely comport with code. However, you're still orphaning 15. So instead of making 3 flag lots there with this narrow flagpole coming down to Fair Road, we went this direction. And that'll be a designed and city-approved private road maintained by an HOA, not the city. It'll become
Okay.
private, and it'll give access to those 5 lots.
okay, that was gonna be my question, then how was it gonna be maintained?
Anyone else?
If approved, what's your timetable for development?
Market driven?
Market driven?
You know, I mean, I think
Fair
the
enough.
market is right. By the time we get approved, we're pretty far on the construction drawings. We should be able to advance this pretty quickly, but as the process plays out, as we get through the proper documentation with the city, even if we're pedal on the floor, this doesn't come out of the ground until next year.
Gotcha. Any other questions?
No, I don't
Okay,
think so.
thank you.
All right.
Public testimony. Thank you. All right, we have no neutral, no in favor, and a couple oppositions here. So wishing to speak, and I apologize if I mess up your name, Lynn Wallert, is that correct? You have 4 minutes, just state your name and address, please.
Okay, my name is Lynn Whalert.
Wheeler.
I live at 3746 North Foxtail Road in the subdivision there. I'm on a homeowners association board, and I'm here representing the board today on this particular edition. We're very concerned not getting the access to Chase Road. They're dumping all that traffic into our homeowners association, and it's going to create a real hardship in the future. So we won't have any access to get to Prairie. We felt that turn lane would actually accommodate that access onto Chase Road, is the way it looks to me. But I'm sure he's a good engineer and he's got it figured out. Looks to me like we got the most number of lots there for the amount of ground we have. We just really ought to take a good hard look at it. It should be more accessible with fire trucks and not just dumping them into the homeowners association to deal with the traffic. So we'd like to see that in a consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, wishing to speak in opposition, Stephanie Mantrul. I'm sorry, I butchered that one, I'm sure. Okay,
It's Stephanie Montrell.
Mantrul.
I live on 1445 West Watercress Avenue. My biggest concern is you're having a street come into a cul-de-sac. You have no access to Chase, and the only access you have to Chase would be through Fisher. And the only way out of our area is on Arrowleaf or Serenity. That plugs that road up really fast. You're going to be adding 20 homes, which equal to be at least 40 more cars, minimum, that are going to be coming down onto Watercress or going across to Pickerel or Cordgrass over to Foxtail and coming down Foxtail to Watercress and then on to Serenity. That's a lot of traffic for our little subdivision. It makes much more sense to access Chase right across from where Ashworth is. And that is Ashworth is already on the other side, and the Planning and Zoning Committee allowed Ashworth to be built just a couple years ago for the property on, what is it, Greenside Vista or Pleasant View? Pheasant View, sorry. And you guys allowed that street to be put in. So I'm just kind of trying to understand why it's not applicable for on the west side of Chase, but it's applicable to be on the left side or the east side of Chase. It doesn't make sense to me. The only way we have out onto Poline right now is up on Pleasant View out of our neighborhood association. And that was supposed to be shut off after we have the road going through the farmer's field here on the undeveloped field. At least that's what it was proposed when it was put in, that it was going to be temporary. So, I don't know. Now we have all this traffic coming down and being pushed down onto Fisher. And that's, you know, that's a lot of vehicles coming down. We already have 25 lots up on Foxtail and Pickerel and Cordgrass in that area that are coming down. So that's a lot of traffic. And Foxtail, as well as Hydrilla, as well as Pickerel, they're all small streets. So you don't have parking on both sides. They are very small. Getting your emergency vehicles through those areas is going to be interesting. And there's a lot of roundabout jigs and jags. I mean, I don't see how it's really straightforward to doing it. That's my objection. I don't think the cul-de-sac is the way to go. You have more land there that's going to be developed. If you look at the map on the north side of where you can look at the top of the screen and the bottom of the screen, there's going to be two more lots on the top side coming out onto Watercress. You're going to have more on the undeveloped down below that are going to come out into that cul-de-sac. So it doesn't make sense for me as a consumer or a citizen of this neighborhood to have this going on.
All right, thank you. Wishing to speak in opposition, Wes Brulot.
Wes Brulot. We live at 1180 West Watercress. We've been in the neighborhood for going on 8 years. And where this new road's coming out, not only are we going to have a lot of traffic like the other people that spoke said, but my house is right across from this new road. We're going to have 40 plus, 50, 60, 70 vehicles at night shining their lights on my kids' bedrooms every night if this goes through. One of the main reasons we bought in this neighborhood, we're at a dead-end cul-de-sac. There's 6 homes. It's quiet. There's very little traffic. It's a great place to raise kids. There's retired people in the community that walk. If we have all these cars coming in through our cul-de-sac, you know, I mean, not only is it going to disrupt my nighttime, you know, I can't remodel my house. You know, if I remodel my house, my living room's going to be in the front. I'm going to have lights shined in my living room every night. So there's got to be another way, like they hit on coming out onto Chase Road here across from Pheasants Landing. You know, there's other options, you know, and putting all this traffic, not only, you know, household vehicles, but you've got UPS, you've got FedEx, you've got all the delivery vehicles, the maintenance vehicles, you know, landscape company, just construction companies, you know. We don't need all the extra traffic. I don't know what else I got, but thanks.
All right, thank you. In opposition, wishing to speak, Stephen Rays? Ray, gotcha.
I'm Steve Ray, and my wife and I, we live at 1188 West Arrowhead there. And our previous speakers have kind of stole my thunder. They've raised up some really good points and things that I've been concerned about and looking at what's happening here. From the aspect of emergency vehicle access into this new development, I'm assuming an ambulance and a fire truck would be coming up Chase heading north. They're gonna have to make a left-hand turn onto Fisher. They're gonna have to make an immediate right-hand turn to get up to our street, and then just a short ways down there to get into this new development, they're gonna have to make another abrupt left-hand turn in this cul-de-sac to provide whatever emergency nurse services are needed in this new development. Whereas you've got all this frontage on Chase, this is a real mystery. It seems obvious to me that here comes emergency services and all kind of other vehicles that are providing service, landscapers and all this other traffic, like UPS, lots of that. Here, a straight shot up Chase, and boom, one left-hand turn will take you right in the middle of this new development. That's obvious to me. What would be, you know, a real consideration for that? Yeah, we do have a quiet street there, and we have, you know, enough traffic with the people that already live there, but dumping further traffic onto that street, I'm 100% positive you've now introduced a hazard there. We have grandchildren that like to ride their bikes out there. There's other folks that live there now that have their kids are out on the street all the time riding their bikes, and it's a fairly wide street, but it's just going to change the whole neighborhood. And I would really encourage the city engineers and their planners to try to figure out a way to directly get tied right into Chase. That would just relieve a lot of issues down on our end, and all goods and services coming out of that area would have a straight, easy shot into the new development. So those are my concerns. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak? Did you fill out the paperwork?
I did, I sent it in on the website.
How about you come up here, and then make sure you fill out the paperwork and turn that in to Amber when you get done.
If there was written comments submitted there in the pack.
Yeah,
they're in the-
if you made written comments, they're already in the packet, so we've read those. But you're more than welcome to speak. Just make sure, you know, speak and then fill out the little paper back there.
My name is Stan French, and I live at 1194 West Watercress Avenue, right on the corner of Serenity and Watercress. And I wrote a letter to the city about our concern about this. Basically, it's the same thing that these people have been saying also about the need for access off of Chase. We live right across the street from the park there, and that park probably is going to be used a lot more often in the near future. There's going to be a lot of cars parked along the road there on Watercress. But what I'm mostly concerned about is that we get a lot of cars right now, or vehicle traffic, funneling on Serenity to get to Fisher, to get to Chase. And like they said, what they're designing here is a large cul-de-sac. There's basically, I know it meets the standards because there's two ways to get out, but it's really just a large cul-de-sac. The only way you're going to get out of there is off of Fisher. It's either going to be on Serenity or, what is that street? The one further down. So we've already seen in the last 2 years the increase in traffic coming in to Serenity, because all the houses that are being built in there, the access off of Chase is coming right through Serenity, and we're right on the corner there. I don't think this is going to change. It's going to get worse when you're going to put 20 more homes in there. And the only way they can get in and out of there is through Serenity coming out of Chase. The Fisher to Serenity. You see what I'm trying to say? It's just one way in and out. If you're coming from the east going west, you're going to turn on Serenity, and that's where most of the traffic's going. If they had a road developed to this development off of Chase, that would alleviate a lot of that traffic going in on Serenity. And like Steve was saying, the emergency use for the road, that's really odd that you wouldn't want better access to all these homes that are going to be built in there to come in off of Chase, rather than going and making all those corners and turns to get in there in this large cul-de-sac. that the city, I heard tonight, the city doesn't like cul-de-sacs. So, but it's just a large cul-de-sac is what it is. We need more, there needs to be more access off of a major roadway, Chase or Prairie, for this new the new developments that are in there. And really, that's what I'm here for. I just would like for you to take that into consideration.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, applicant for rebuttal, please.
Okay, Jeremy Terzulli with Olson Engineering again. Couple things I wanted to point out. With regard to density, we're not even close to max density on this. All lots are 8,500 to some as much as 13,000 square feet. Minimum lot size being 6,500 in R1 in Post Falls, so well under on density. Now let's talk about the connection and the traffic issues. So again, the standards of approval are 6. Water, sewer, that's 1 and 2. Proposed streets consistent with the transportation master plan, which they are. And then we move into the soil, conformity with code, and developer paying their fair share. So we're kind of, by the letter of the law, we are consistent with the master transportation plan. However, I do understand the concerns being brought up, and I want to reiterate, our first attempt at this was to go off onto Chase. That was our preferred approach. Intersection spacing along Chase was such that they felt with the expansion of the roundabout at Chase and Prairie, as westbound traffic bearing south onto Chase, they would be accelerating out of that roundabout, and we could have a congestion issue. We would have probably greater danger of there being a collision at that intersection. Now, I leave that to the traffic analysis experts. We simply said, okay, we'll come up with another way. So went back to Mr. Fair, who sold the property, bought some additional property to connect to Watercress. I will point out that Watercress, upon redevelopment of the Fair property, there were always going to be additional houses stacked on that side of the road upon redevelopment, likely 4 or 5 additional homes on Watercress. So that's how we landed on this alignment. To be honest with you, it's cheaper and more, this is the more expensive route for us. This isn't about us trying to cut corners or impede somebody else's lot or anything like that. The easiest thing for us is to create our own cul-de-sac at the south of this property. And again, the orientation is so that south is to our right, north is to our right and south is to our left. So the south portion, us providing a cul-de-sac down there would actually be the most efficient use of this land. But I wanted to point out that in pre-development, I was offered 3 comments by Kootenai County Fire Department, Gerald Archer. One was regarding hydrant spacing. One was regarding a fire truck turnaround on the private road or private drive. And the other states that approval will need to consider showing a master plan for Watercress access. So EMS pointed out that they wanted connectivity to Watercress. City engineer pointed out that felt the intersection spacing was too close at the roundabout at Chase. And just the 2 accesses at Pickerel and Cordgrass were, I guess, deemed insufficient. I will point out that IFC, that's International Fire Code, states that any subdivision, residential subdivision that exceeds 31 or 32 lots needs a second point of ingress egress. This is 20. We do have 2 points of ingress egress at Pickerel and Cordgrass. So it would comply with IFC. We're just trying to work with all the agencies that are offering comment here to keep everybody happy and provide a product that we think is going to flow and function well. And the last point I want to bring up is that connectivity on these streets, as John pointed out, the city's for maintenance purposes, don't like cul-de-sacs. Fire and EMS prefer not to deal with cul-de-sacs. Connectivity is not just about EMS, traffic flow, street networking. There's also an opportunity to connect infrastructure. Looping of water lines improves fire flow. Water districts hate dead ends. They hate them. They have to go maintain them. They have to install blow-offs. Pressure is fluctuating on dead ends. Whenever they get a chance to loop a water system, it's preferred, and they take every opportunity to do that. So, with that being said, if the city engineer and EMS would allow an access off of Chase, absolutely entertain it. It's our preferred path. It's actually cheaper for us. The reason we did it this way was to satisfy all those comments that we received during design. However, I'm really hoping that we can come to a decision tonight. If the decision is approval with a condition that we work with the city engineer to approach Chase, that's fine, we'll do that. But if they deny that, we'd like to leave it as is or simply approve without conditions. I really don't want to table this. We've already waited 4 months for the Fisher Lift Station report to come back. We'd really like to get some resolution on this tonight. So I know this is rebuttal, but are there any clarifications I could offer?
I have a quick question. When you originally presented it with an entrance exit off of Chase, was it up at Chase close to the roundabout, or was it at the far end of your development?
It was at the far south.
Still
As far south
at
as
the
we
far
could
end
get
of the
it.
development? Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Rob, would you mind coming up and maybe adding some context to that, please?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, Robert Paulus, Assistant City Engineer. Putting some things into context on the roads. We got Watercress Road, which is a 32-foot wide standard residential street built for parking on both sides. The subdivision, I think you said that was, I think this one shows it good. Serenity Street widens to a 36-foot wide, which we call a residential collector street to add a little bit of additional width for traffic getting out onto Fisher Avenue. The proposed subdivision has, as has been gone over, the 2 access points connecting with Cordgrass and Pickerel Street, and then connecting into Watercress. From the Craftsman at Meadow Ridge subdivision, you have the access points at Serenity, Arrowleaf onto Fisher, and then you have Hydrilla Avenue, which is going to be punched through to Howell Road, which is about 600 feet to the west and off the screen, and that provides access up to Prairie Avenue. The subdivision was previously approved by you several months ago, and we are currently in the review phases for that subdivision for Hydrilla to punch through to Howell. In terms of Chase Road and what we have going on, if you take a look at this picture, Ashworth Street actually connects in more south of this subdivision than on the subdivision. The problem that engineering sees, and ideally if you could have a connection point at Ashworth, that would be the place to do that. It doesn't meet our spacing standards for a long Chase Road, but if you could have connection point, that'd be it. The problem is that with the offset of the intersection, if you were to have an offset intersection, left turns heading into this subdivision and left turns trying to get down to Ashworth would overlap each other and create a potentially dangerous situation for left turning vehicles, especially in a 40-mile-per-hour speed zone. The city standard for spacing on a minor arterial roadway, which is what Chase Road is every 500 feet. The distance from Ashworth down to Fisher Avenue is about 400 feet. The distance between Ashworth and Prairie Avenue is right about 900 feet, which doesn't allow for an access point in between Ashworth and Prairie. Our concerns is the further north you get towards Prairie Avenue, you do have those speeds of traffic coming out of the roundabout and starting to accelerate. So we would want it further south, but the further south you get, the closer you get to Ashworth, and without being able to line Ashworth across the roadway, there's not a good spot to put a road connection. Tried to encapsulate that quickly. I hope that made sense. I understand for any questions you might have in that existing road network.
And then just to confirm that the vacant lot up there off of Prairie, Coregrass, the plan for sometime in the future would go through there and then connect to Pasture View.
That is correct. That vacant piece will not be allowed in access onto Prairie Avenue itself. It will have to connect Cordgrass onto, I forget the name of that road, but that
Yeah.
other road so that they can utilize Pasture View to get to Prairie Avenue.
Okay.
And we do not know the timing of that because that is currently in the county, and we are not aware of any desire for that property to be annexed at this time.
All right.
So you're saying Cordgrass would have to S and come down to the bottom
Yeah, so
pasture view there?
this road would come over here, go up at a 90, and then 90 back over to Cordgrass.
Ooh, that's gonna be awkward too.
Any other questions? Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Close the hearing. Go through the review criteria. All right, criteria 1, fine, a provision has been made for adequate water system, adequate to the terms of the quality, and quality for the type of subdivision.
Yes.
I think we have East Green Acres irrigation.
Yeah, public water will be available.
Yep. Okay, next one. Adequate provisions have been made for the public sewer system, that the existing municipal system can accommodate the proposed sewer flows.
Yeah, I think we talked about the Fisher lift station.
Mhm.
Fisher lift station could accommodate, but it's getting to max, so,
And I think that's been in other hearings that we've had, so I know that's
Yes.
definitely on the
yes.
on the list to get done here sooner than later. All right. Next item. Proposed streets are consistent with the transportation element of the comprehensive plan. I think this one for me is, by letter of the law it is, but it does concerning just the way it's going to be built, but it doesn't sound like there can be any other way.
It sounds like
Based
that,
off.
that the developer worked as best in every way they could to make an exit different than what is proposed now with this layout, and it just wouldn't work with the city and everything.
Ma'am, the hearing's already closed. We can't.
Yeah, it looks like they've gone to, I understand the nearby residents, and it is unfortunate that there can't be an access to Chase. I understand what everybody's saying there. The city engineering staff make it pretty clear why there can't be. And the applicant's gone to pretty great measures here to establish as much connectivity as possible for residents and EMS, and I don't think we could ask much more of them.
I do have a concern with the egress out into the cul-de-sac, right into a cul-de-sac. That, I don't know that I've seen that done before, but I just think that could be dangerous. But I am not an engineer.
I don't know. Number 4, all the areas of the proposed subdivision, which may include soil and topographical conditions, pre-existing hazards, has been identified. That has been in the proposed uses of these areas are compatible with such conditions.
I don't think any adverse or hazardous conditions were identified, so I think,
Yeah, other than it being over
Yeah.
the aquifer, nothing else has been brought up. Number 5, the area proposed for subdivision is zoned for the purposes used. Uses and the uses conform to the other requirements found in the code.
Yes.
yes.
R1, it could possibly be more dense under R1
Yeah.
standards.
Yeah, it has pretty good sized lots for R1.
And the last one, the developer has made adequate plans to ensure the community will bear no more than its fair share of costs to provide services by paying finishing lands or providing other mitigating measures for off-site impacts to streets, parks, public facilities within the community. It is that expectation that, in most cases, off-site mitigation will be dealt through the obligation to pay developmental impact fees, which, as of tonight, includes fire and EMS impact fees, along with streets, parks, and public facilities.
I think we talked about that in impact fees. And
Yeah, paying of impact fees.
I think it's kind of a bummer that the developers gotta pay for the improvements along Chase and can't access Chase like they and the residents would like to do, but I understand the situation with the cross streets.
All right. Any other comments? All right, if there's no other comments, anybody like to make a motion, one way or the other?
I will. I move to approve, sorry, just a second, I don't have it. I move to approve Fair Estate subdivision file number SUBD 23-1, finding that it meets the approval criteria in the Post Falls Municipal Code as outlined in our deliberations, subject to conditions 1 through 11, as noted in the staff report, and direct staff to prepare a written reasoned decision.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second it.
And we have a second. Roll call, please.
Carrie,
Yes.
Stephenson,
Yes.
Schlotthauer,
Yes.
Hampi,
Yes.
Okay. All right, that'll move on to City Council.
Does it? Does it?
No? Yeah.
Decision.
Oh. Just give it a second here. And our third and final hearing tonight, we'll open that up. Haycrop Commercial Park Subdivision.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ethan Porter, I'm one of the planners for the city, here to present the Haycrop Commercial Park subdivision. The owner of the property for the proposal is Medalist Development Incorporated, and the applicant who's here tonight is Whipple Consulting Engineers. The requested action tonight from them is to approve the subdivision of approximately 88 acres into 22 commercial lots. This will expand over the community commercial service, the CCS zone, as well as a community commercial mixed, a CCM zone, zoning designation that you'll see up here in the upcoming slides. So right here you can see hatched in red the project location. It is east of Highway 41. There's that northwest corner there that is butting Highway 41, and then you have north of Prairie right there, just west of Fennicus Road. And so that's where the project's located, and we'll kind of go into what's currently on the land right now is it's vacant. The water provider would be Ross Point Water District, which there is a will serve letter, I believe, Exhibit A5 in the staff report, and then the wastewater provider would be the city of Post Falls. So here you can see kind of what I was mentioning. There's two zonings that this is over. The northwest is kind of that red, which is the community commercial services zone. And then to the east of that, you have that striping of red and the yellow, which is the community commercial mix zone. And then Obviously, you can see around Highway 41, you have a technology mixed one to the west of Highway 41, the candy cane looking colored one, and then the yellow you can see there, the straight yellow is just the residential R1 zoning. So there's a little bit of residential, technology mixed, commercial, but primarily around that Highway 41 and Prairie intersection, you can see that red is predominantly there. Looking at kind of what they're proposing, so you can see here, they propose some phases that kind of look at what their subdivision is coming off Prairie using Fennicus to go up, and then they have that Harvest Road there that goes from the west and east location there towards the northern side, or northern part of it. Smallest lot within the subdivision they're proposing is about 0.63 acres, and the largest would be about 9.02 acres. And so, again, these are all proposed for within the community commercial, and then the community commercial services and the community commercial mixed zoning designations. So we look at the review criteria for what they're kind of proposing, and we look at the water provisions, making sure there's adequate water. Like I mentioned before, Exhibit A5 in the staff report does show the will serve letter from the water provider, Ross Point Water District. Review criteria 2, we look at the public sewage system, making sure there's adequate capacity and can accommodate the flows. And the staff report does state that does have the capacity to service the subdivision as proposed. There is a surcharge applied south of Harvest Avenue, and I'll go back real quick. As you can see there on the northern above Phase 3 and Phase 1, that Phase 4 is not included in that surcharge per staff comment looking at that 12th Avenue lift station surcharge, so they would pay extra for that lift station, kind of I believe it's maintenance and kind of looking to upgrade or handle that lift station. Looking at the third review criteria, we look at the streets, making sure it's consistent with the transportation element of the comprehensive plan, and staff commented the subdivision and proposed layout that they've shown are consistent with the city's transportation master plan. Design standards to include a future traffic signal and the intersection of Harvest Avenue and Highway 41, which I will let probably Rob comment a little bit more on some of the engineering aspects gets later on in this presentation. But right now we see that the minor collector roadways are Zoros Road and Harvest Avenue, and the major collector roadway is at Fennicus Road. That Fennicus is the one that runs north and south. And then we look at review criteria 4, basically involving the soil and topographical conditions, any hazards there that we can see also, as John laid out in the previous hearing, that we haven't gotten anything received from this, from kind of their due diligence or anything on the site that has proposed a topographical issue or hazard. Nothing has been brought to staff's attention. Again, this is over the Rostrum Prairie Aquifer that we see here in this area, just to note it. And then review criteria 5 looks at the proposed, the area proposed for the subdivision is zoned for the proposed uses, and the uses conform to the requirements in this code. Looking at a subdivision, there isn't much as far as lot area and lot widths for commercial community commercial services zoning designation to meet, but within the community commercial mixed zone, there would be a development agreement that would need to be followed, since it's a mixed zoning and it already gets approved through a development agreement with it. So keeping that in mind as well. And then review criteria 6, again, this talks about making sure the community bears no more than its fair share of cost to provide services, and making sure that the impacts from development are assessed and counted for. And so through impact fees, through the building permits that will be applied for in the future, if this gets approved, then we can see those impact fees being assessed, and the developer will have to pay those, which helps mitigate the off-site impacts to parks, fire, EMS, public safety, multimodal pathways, and streets. And so the agencies notified, you can see here on the screen. And of these agencies, the comments from the Yellowstone Pipeline Company, there was no comment there. They stated no comment. And then Kootenai County Fire and Rescue reserved comments for the city's permitting review process. And then the Post Falls Highway District, they stated that Harvest has not been approved for access and will need to apply for access, where ITD will be requesting a transportation impact study. And I will kind of let Rob comment a little bit more on that if he would like.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, Robert Paulus, Assistant City Engineer. The comment regarding Harvest not having been approved for access is from the Idaho Transportation Department, not the Post Falls Highway District. In context, the intersection with Harvest and State Highway 41 has been identified in the Highway 41 Corridor Master Plan. It has also been examined with the traffic study that was done for the project immediately next door in the northeast corner of Prairie and Highway 41, which is Prairie Crossing, and is being reviewed right now with a traffic study on the west side of Highway 41 across the street from Harvest. In all of those, that intersection has been identified for a traffic signal, and what ITD's comment requires is that prior to Harvest Avenue actually making the connection to Highway 41, ITD requires an encroachment permit, and they want to have the traffic study done to verify at what time that traffic signal needs to go in, and if a traffic signal is not going to go in, or engineering would call it being warranted to go in at this time, then ITD would be looking at what is the proper configuration for that intersection of Harvest Avenue with State Highway 41. Would that be a 3/4 turn movement where they allow lefts in off of the highway and then rights in and rights out, but no left turns on Highway 41?
Where exactly is Harvest in relation to this property?
So you see Harvest Avenue right along the top side of Phase 3, and then it intersects Highway 41
Okay, I see it. I'm
just
sorry.
north
Yeah.
of the old railroad crossing.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions on transportation?
Any questions?
Can you remind us, I didn't understand the, I remember in a previous meeting, you explaining to us the 12th Street, the surcharge for the 12th Street lift station.
Okay.
Why does it apply to 1, 2, and 3, but not 4?
So, sorry, Ethan, your slide was a little bit wrong. The staff report identifies there is a surcharge for phases 1, 2, and 3, and a different surcharge for phase 4. All of this property, phases 1 through 4, had a sewer study done by the applicant, it was about a year ago, or maybe a little bit more than that, in which they were able to find, well, not find, but it was determined that there was enough capacity to handle the area that we're looking at with phases 1 through 3 in the Highway 41 line. Phase 4 would have to go through what we call the Meyer alternative line, or a sewer line which goes down through Fennicus Road and heads to the south, and it has not been constructed yet south of Prairie Avenue. So with phases 1, 2, and 3, they would pay a surcharge to help pay for the force mains associated with the 12th Avenue lift station. With phase 4, when the sewer is available from Highway 41 and up Fennicus Road to the site, they would need to pay a surcharge for the 12th Avenue force main, and then they would also have to pay a surcharge for the Fennicus, or the Meyer alternative line. So the surcharge on phase 4 is higher than phases 1, 2, and 3. Does that help, Ross?
Makes more sense.
Okay. And in their conceptual plans that they did provide as part of the packet, if you tried to follow the sewer lines, it can get a little bit confusing because it is laid out so that phases 1, 2, and 3 all flow generally to the south, west towards Highway 41 Prairie intersection, and then there's an additional line that they are putting in, which for right now would be a empty line or a dry line, which would allow phase 4 and any future development further to the north and to the east to be able to utilize that Meyer alternative line in accordance with our water reclamation master plan.
Okay, anything else? Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The applicant like to come up?
Oh, I still have
Oh,
one,
sorry.
a few more slides. No, you're good.
Oh, I thought you were done. My bad.
Sorry. There is some considerations for the conditions, along with this, as the draft staff report was sent out, and then, the applicant reached out with, kind of some concerns, or they just wanted some clarification on some of them, and so with staff discussion with the applicant and internally, we looked at condition number 4, the highlighted in the blue text basically is what we would change in condition 4 to, and then the black is what it was. So condition 4 stated the project is responsible for 1/2 of the cost of the future traffic signal at Harvest Avenue, or State Highway 41, at the time of the site development west of Zoros Road, and that would be changed to a traffic signal warrant analysis will be required prior to the installation of the traffic signal. The developer is being required to cash out 50% of the estimated cost for installing a traffic signal at the intersection. The timing of that signal will be dependent upon the intensity of development and coordinated with ITD as the project with the city or other future developer. Junction project on the west side of the State Highway 41. So kind of also what Rob was just stating a little bit ago. But that's a little more clarifying for condition 4. So in your deliberation tonight, and then once it moves forward to a motion, you could also approve condition number 4, basically as stated here, that it would be changed to that kind of language.
So basically, a change to condition number 4 as presented,
I believe so. That's how it would be
That's
kind
fine.
of done. And then, looking at condition 15, it was determined that this could be removed as the condition is stated elsewhere in another agreement, which I believe, talking with staff, was the annexation agreement. Condition 15 stated final construction plans of improvements made to the city-owned Prairie Trail lot located in the former railroad right-of-way, including but not limited to pedestrian facilities and landscaping, shall be reviewed and approved by the Parks and Recreation Department prior to any construction. So, since that was already stated prior in previous agreement, then we would just remove this one as it's repetitive and not needed.
So you're not changing it, you're just adding to it?
We would remove 15 completely.
Oh, you remove
Yeah,
15?
we would change
complete-
4 to what the blue text was.
Oh, okay, and then no
remove 15.
longer,
Correct.
yes,
Yep.
okay.
And then one last one.
Fine.
So for condition 18, basically, as it stated there in the black text, we would just add the blue text there, which excludes the Prairie Trail. And so the gist of it is kind of calling out the maintenance shall include all landscaping, irrigation, and removal of snow from sidewalks and trails. The trails, I think, was a little bit vague, and so it's excluding the Prairie Trail, as that would be a city-owned property as well, and I believe Parks would be maintaining that.
Parks, okay.
So it just kind of clarifies a little bit more in that condition 18. And so, again, when you're deliberating and then making an approval or denial or whatever it may be for this, you could make sure that these are included with your decision as well. So
For 15, what agreement was previously? Or
I
is that it?
believe, and Rob can correct me if I'm wrong, but it was the annexation agreement that stipulated kind of that section already on what was included, but not limited to for those facilities. If you want to, you can.
He nodded yes.
Okay.
He nodded yes, all right, that's cool.
Perfect.
As
So-
long as the applicant and the city is fine with it.
annexation and development agreement.
And then I would stand for any questions you have on that.
And conditions 6 and 7, that address what Rob said about the phase 4 north of Harvest and phase 1, 2, and 3 south of Harvest. It was conditions 6 and 7 delineated that element that he clarified.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No changes.
No
but-
changes, it just kind of spells it out.
It's in
a
there.
little more. Okay,
Cool.
all right. So I know that they're asking for 2 different, they want CCS and CCM.
So they don't want that, they're just subdividing over those already established zoning districts.
Yeah.
So they're already done.
They're already zoned that,
Oh,
yeah.
okay, all right, that's why I was
Yeah.
trying to figure out what that meant in here.
Yeah.
Okay, I gotcha now.
So anything over the community commercial mix zone will need to follow the development agreement that was already established and approved.
I got you, so that's why we have all the hatched and the, okay, got it.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so the gist of like a preliminary plat / subdivision review, it's these 6 criteria that we have up here.
Right.
So you're looking like, is there water? Can we provide water to these lots?
Okay.
Sewer to these lots, you know, is the transportation network, do we have access to them, you know, with number 3, and then you're looking at soil, like this, is there any hazards? Before we plat, are we creating any hazards for these lots? So
Right,
you're really
okay.
comparing these, you know, and making sure it meets zoning. And so that's kind of when you see that subdivision, kind of we're looking big picture that way on
Okay,
this
okay,
criteria.
yeah, okay.
I always like to think of it as a funnel, like you've got zoning is the big end of the funnel and
And then
subdivision's the
now
narrow
we're
end
down
of
to
the funnel.
this right here. Yeah, okay, all right. It's just with all the little hatches and I was trying to make sense.
Any other questions?
No questions? Nope, thank you.
I believe that's your
Thanks. Hence this thing. Mr. Chairman, Planning Commission, my name is Todd Whipple. I'm here on behalf of Ray Kimball, so if I mess this up, I'm sorry. I'll do my best to wade through what he's left me. With me tonight are the owners, and it was good to hear that city staff explained a lot of the things that, while I understand it, I'm not so sure I could explain it to you because I've only been in it a short time because Ray's on his way back from the coast. So here I am. So it's the Haycrop subdivision, Park Commercial Subdivision. When we do these PowerPoint presentations, for the most part, it's a regurgitation, which you've already heard from staff. I asked Planning Commission or other members of the, well, not staff anymore, but Planning Commission, if you have any questions, just stop along the way. I'll answer what I can and what I know. I think Rob filled in a lot of the blanks as it related to the transportation system, especially Highway 41, when we get there. The rest of it, I think, is fairly straightforward. Well, it's a large subdivision, 88 acres. It's pretty big, but it's only 22 lots because they're commercial. Commercial subdivisions are kind of a different animal. They require different things, bigger roads, larger lots. So small subdivisions like the one you heard earlier today, smaller lots, smaller roads, different kinds of connectivity. Commercial subdivisions, big lots, bigger roads, different kinds of connectivity. So the project site, I think, has, as you understand, it's in that northeast corner of Highway 41 and Prairie. It doesn't include that one parcel there, but it's kind of an irregular shape. And so when he asked me to do this, I said, well, how come there's this little notch in there? He says, well, that's because Finicus is already partly under construction because there's a Peak Fitness already there. And the Kootenai Classical Academy is also across the street. So that's why that weird kind of juxtaposition. It's in the CCM, so the project that's there that's being constructed is consistent with the CCM. It's just that they're not part of the subdivision because they're already moving forward on their own parcels. We don't have all the X's and the lines and the different colors that staff does. We make it a little easier, only because this is the future land use map. I think sometimes some certain maps are easier to read and certain maps aren't easier to read. I know when I saw that one map that went up, I'm like, what is that other crosshatch? I'm not so sure what that is. So anyway, that's what that is. And so basically this is the map with all the other additional crosshatching. You've got the up and down vertical lines in CCM, and then the solid red is CCS, as you guys are completely aware of your existing zone. Those are all existing zones. So there's no request for zone change here. Lots of times we're here asking for different things as a part of the subdivision, but in this instance, it's all existing zoning, and any future development that occurs inside the subdivision will be constructed associated with the zone that it falls. So some of different phases are in different zones, but when those individual uses come forward, they'll be consistent with the land use codes as shown on this map. This is really just kind of a site data map. It's not the whole subdivision. This is a large subdivision. It would be hard I could go through drawing after drawing after drawing after drawing to show you the same kind of information that subdivision you saw earlier showed, because it was a smaller subdivision. Basically, this is just a layout of the large lot subdivision. It shows you all the lots associated with it, all 22 lots. You can see there's some small lots along Prairie. I think one of the conditions is that we can't have access along Prairie for those lots. We have to have a secondary access from those lots, either from Zoros or for Phoenix or from some other part of a commercial subdivision that might be developed in there with different uses. Other than that, it's most of these roads are not local roads. I think on the following slide, well, not, I guess not on the following slide. They're almost all collector level or minor, major, or arterial level. I think there was a slide that staff had. I have a slide further in that goes across the higher order. So these, you know, the higher roadways are either local, collector, arterial, highway. And so large lot subdivisions might have some internal roads that would be more local looking as it relates to maybe something that might happen in between. Someone might buy one of these larger parcels and maybe subdivide it and put a little road in there, but they'll all lead out to the collectors. The collectors will lead out to the arterials, and the transportation people will be happy. So I think staff did a great job with adequate provisions. You know, our job up here is to make record. Obviously, water will be provided by Ross Point. The sewer I was confused about. I want to thank everybody, for all staff members, for unconfusing me, because I'm replacing Ray in this juncture. And while I understood it, I was like, well, what? Finicus doesn't go anywhere? How is that going to work? And then I think they explained it, and I understand it. So if I can understand it, hopefully everybody else can. So I want to thank Rob for that wonderful explanation. So the proposed streets are Zoros, Finicus, Harvest, and Prairie Avenue. Prairie Avenue is obvious, an existing road. That's just frontage improvements only. Finicus is partially constructed already, and Prairie Avenue will be constructed this summer. And so this is kind of an interesting subdivision because of that little arrow that was in there. They needed access, and so there's access being provided to those two parcels that really aren't a part of this, you know, the odd shape. So there's things out there that are already under construction, even though they're really called out as a part of the plat as it relates to traffic and transportation access. And so once again, are the proposed streets consistent with the transportation master plan? I think you'll find that if you were to look that up in your comp plan, you'd find that they were. This is just a higher order of road. Pink is collectors. Highway 41 and Prairie are principal arterials. Actually, Highway 41, I'm sure it is a principal arterial in the state system, and Prairie is a principal arterial on your city system, and the rest of them are collectors. So they're a higher order road. They carry more cars to more places than a local road would. And so locals are to provide local land access to collectors. Collectors provide, they collect an area and take it to an arterial takes it off to a highway, and then we all go on vacation. So that's kind of how it's supposed to work. As a part of this project, it's a pretty aggressive transportation system that could potentially generate a lot of traffic, and you'll see that this project proposes 3 roundabouts, one at Prairie and Finicus, one at Prairie and Zoros, one at Finicus and Harvest, and the future traffic signal at Harvest and Highway 41. There's already a traffic signal, a brand new traffic signal at Prairie and 41, one of those great big Z signals or whatever they call them with the Idaho Department of Transportation. I think the most critical thing when everybody gets there is Idaho Department of Transportation will require everybody to do another traffic impact statement. That was that TIS that Rob alluded to. But really what it is when you place a signal on a highway, it's really a safety study is what it comes down to. You have to meet warrants. There's 13 warrants, plus or minus, that you have to meet. Number of vehicles, left turning vehicles, pedestrians, et cetera, et cetera. Most jurisdictions require between 1 and 4 minimum number of warrants to be met. So you just can't say, oh, hey, I meet 1 warrant, because most jurisdictions are like, yeah, well, if you meet 1 warrant, a signal's a problem for us. We prefer that you meet 4. We want you to meet peak hour. We want you to meet this. We want you to meet this. And so there's a whole series of different warrants that you would meet. And so when it finally comes down to the time, you can't meet a warrant to the cars there. You can meet a paper warrant and say, okay, well, we're going to do a traffic study and a traffic study, and we're going to generate this many cars, and it looks like we're going to generate all this traffic, and so you can go through this whole traffic study and a safety study and say, a traffic signal is there, but a lot of jurisdictions will still require you to do periodic updates to make sure the signal's really required. In other words, in a temporary condition, do you have a right out, a left out without a signal, or don't you try to do that at all? And then sooner or later, when everything comes together, then it's ready for the signal to be constructed. Continuing with the subdivision criteria, it's valley gravels. We call it valley gravels. It's Morrison or Garrison, or actually they the Soil Conservation Service changed all of our titles on us about 4 or 5 years ago. So what we knew as Morrison and Garrison is now some other strange, bizarre land use, but it's still a free draining soil. It has a mix of loess and gravel, and it's almost impossible to have it be poor soil in this area. The proposed zoning is for what a commercial subdivision would be, CCM or CCS. It meets that requirement. I don't know if our language is exactly the same as what you proposed, Ethan. I think it is. For condition number 4, we ask that you make that revision. Yeah, I think it's what we just talked about the intersection.
Right.
When should you do it? Why should you do it? And when should you be ready to do it? I think that's what his language is, similar to this, if not exactly the same. And there's a whole nother process that has to occur after this when we get ready to finally do that traffic signal. Condition number 8, last week there was a conversation with staff to remove condition 15 simply because of the development agreement and the annexation agreement from back in the day as related to the Prairie Trail, and also some of the other requirements that they have to do. And so thank you for removing. We would ask that the Planning Commission agree with staff and remove condition number 15. And then we would ask Planning Commission to exclude the Prairie Trail as outlined in the staff presentation as related to condition number 18. And that's about it. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer what I can, and if I can't, I'll get help.
What's the distance between Highway 41 and the roundabouts off of Prairie that'll be constructed?
Off of Prairie, the first one at Zoros, about a half mile.
Okay.
Yeah. Quarter mile. Is that the
Quarter
quarter
mile?
mile? Sorry, quarter mile.
Quarter mile.
Oh, yeah, because Harvest is at the half mile, so Fennicus would be about the half mile if Harvest is the half mile, and then Zoros would be the quarter mile. Sorry.
Gotcha.
Did I say that part correct? Thank you. Anything else?
Any other questions?
No.
I thank you for your time, and I ask you to approve our project. Thanks.
Thank you. Any public testimony?
Just one.
Just one? All right. Let's see. Wishing to speak, yes. In favor, Mark Hughes.
Mark Hughes, Hughes Farm, we're right across the street from them. We were in favor of the annexation when the Jacklins wished to annex the property. We were thrilled when the Kootenai Classical Academy found a home just north of our property. And when the Jacklins recently requested an easement for water across our property to get to this property, we of course agreed. So we've just been in favor of everything they've been doing. We've been neighbors for about a half a century, and we trust them to do a good job. I don't know who all will be occupying all of these various properties, but we look forward to it getting developed, and we support them.
All right. Thank you, sir. All right. And just the one? All right. No need for rebuttal. I'll close out the hearing. All right, subdivision number 1. Definite provision has been made for the water supply system that is adequate in terms of quantity and quality of the type of subdivision.
Yes, Ross Point Water is going to provide water.
Yep. Next one. Adequate provisions have been made for the public sewer system and that the existing municipal system can accommodate the proposed sewer flows.
That's going to be the city of Post Falls Sewer, and they say they have adequate capacity for this development.
All right. Number 3, proposed streets are consistent with the transportation element of the comprehensive plan. I think we talked about this, the roads that are gonna be in there are gonna be bigger than your normal residential ones, so they should be able to handle the traffic, and then you're right off a major highway and a prairie also. Number 4, all areas of the proposed subdivision which may involve soil or topographical conditions presenting hazards have been identified, and that the proposed uses, these areas are compatible with such conditions.
Don't believe there were any known hazards, so.
None noted.
And number 6. 5? Oh. All right. Just the 5 then. Okay.
Yeah, the underlining zoning is,
There are 6, but we're on 5.
Oh, you skipped it when I was looking down then. Okay. All right. The area, see, I was looking down at the agenda here, and that's right. The proposed, the area proposed for subdivision for zone is proposed uses, and the uses conform to the requirements found in this code. There you go.
Yes, and
Yep, all
zoned
the
as
underlying
is, and they're
zoning.
not asking for any zone adjustments or.
Mhm. Yep. And number 6, developer has made adequate plans to ensure the community will bear no more than its fair share of the cost providing services, paying fees, furnishing land, or providing other mitigating measures for off-site impacts to streets, parks, and other public facilities within the communities. It is the expectation that in most cases, off-site mitigation will be dealt through the obligation to pay developer impact fees.
yes, they're gonna pay impact fees and lift station fees and
Surcharge fees.
surcharges,
Yep.
yeah. Surcharge.
Any other comments?
I just think it makes sense. It's, the use is, it's zoned, it's there, and we've been waiting for Highway 41 to finish so that we can get some commercial going there, and that's what's happening, so.
Yeah,
what
that's
they're proposing.
exactly what I was gonna say. I think so many things we've seen over the past couple of years, it's like, okay, we're gonna wait till 41's done, we're gonna wait till
Yeah.
41's done. And now that 41 is complete, we're actually seeing the development
Yeah.
now happen. All right, if anybody would like to make a motion,
I think I can maybe handle it. I move to approve the Haycrop Commercial Park Subdivision File Number SUBD-23-2, finding that it meets the approval criteria in the Post Falls Municipal Code as outlined in our deliberations, subject to the conditions 1 through 18, with the following exceptions to those conditions. Condition number 4, condition number 4 changed to what was agreed upon by staff and the applicant and was presented in this evening's meeting. Condition number 15 be removed entirely. Condition number 18 includes the language excludes Prairie Trail. And direct staff to prepare a written reasoned decision.
okay, we have a motion on the floor.
Was there a difference in the two clarifications on the excludes Prairie Trail? The first one.
No,
I think there was,
I
they were
think
asking for
number
something a
4
little different than what the city staff had on the traffic signal.
And that's the reason I said as agreed upon, because there might have been tiny bits of language is what I was hearing.
You're
but
talking about between the
nothing's-
applicant's presentation and the staff? So I
Is that-
think
Is that what we were to understand?
Those are you putting in?
we'll go with what was in the staff report.
Or do you want to, okay.
I see all the
Okay.
applicants and owners shaking their heads, yes,
Okay.
in agreement.
So that condition number 4, just change it to as presented by staff.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Have a motion? Have a second?
Oh, did you say you have a second?
No, I said, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Now we have a second. Roll call, please.
Hampi,
Yes.
Schlauer.
Yes.
Stephenson,
Yes.
Carrie.
Yes.
All right. Next item on the agenda, administrative and staff reports.
Thanks for making a second meeting happen this month.
No problem. Do we have one meeting next month?
Are you gonna make it up to us with one next month?
At this time, that's what we have planned.
Ah. All
Wait a
right.
minute. Wait a minute, making it up would be 0 next month.
That's true.
Well, it's gonna be, I think, fairly, well, I
It'll
guess,
be like a 5-minute meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, that would be
Okay.
all right.
All right,
Yeah.
that's
Sounds
all
good.
right.
Well, maybe it'll be
I can't
like
complain, I haven't been here.
National Cupcake Day and they can
Oh,
bring
yeah,
cupcakes.
right,
in.
let's make it, yeah, on one of those days.
oh,
Here, here.
All right. Commissioner comments?
Nope.
No comments?
No.
All right. Next item. Motion for,
Move to adjourn?
move to adjourn.